Hey viewers, what are attachment styles? Where do your attachment styles come from? And perhaps most importantly, what is your attachment style? And how does that attachment style have such a massive impact on your relationships with women? Not just your relationships, but often your ability to create relationships, to meet women and form relationships with those women. Well, keep watching to find out. Attachment theory first sort of came to light in the late 50s under research of Bowlby, a researcher, and became more and more popular in the late 60s, early 70s, as we began to do a lot of experiments, unfortunately some of them sadder than others, with monkeys and little babies. We would look at how does a person's upbringing, so their relationship to their primary caregiver in essence, how does that transmute into our way of dealing with stress in the environment around us? So how does your relationship with your primary caregiver impact how you relate, connect with, and interact with the world around you at large? And what we found, or what we continue to find to this day, is that it has quite a large impact, unsurprisingly. So we tend to see 4 different styles of attachment style. And these are as follows. If you have a look here, you'll see that you've got essentially what you have is one type of secure attachment style and 3 kinds of insecure attachment styles. Those are your anxious and your fearful over in the high anxiety side of things, and then you have your avoidant on the low anxiety side of things. Now, what a lot of therapists tend to do when talking about attachment styles to people is they really tend to say, okay, well, if you're going to have a high anxiety attachment style, you're going to be either anxious or fearful. Let's put them together and call that an anxious attachment style. And if you are a low anxiety attachment style, let's call that an avoidant insecure attachment style. So what are these? How do these attachment styles relate to you in the world? Because they are fascinating. They have such a massive impact on so many of the men that I work with. So essentially, if we use that idea of splitting it into high anxiety attachment, insecure attachment, and low anxiety attachment, essentially avoidant and insecure attachment styles. If you look at insecure attachment styles, what we tend to see is people who they constantly need validation. They become clingy in relationships because they're scared. They feel like the love is going to be unpredictable. They don't feel safe with the love, so they constantly need to be reminded because they don't feel like they can just feel safe that the love will always be there. So they don't dare to stray too far away from the relationship to hang out with other people. They constantly want to check in, go home, see how everything's going. They feel like their partner might do something unreliable, untrustworthy a lot of the time, so they can become the ones who sort of constantly anxious that their partner might be cheating, constantly anxious that something's going to go wrong in the relationship. All these kind of fears and issues come up a lot in relationships, and they can easily be needy, even in the early days when they first meet women. The way of approaching and trying to attack women can often be needy, with the texting too frequently, with the trying to constantly agree with women so that they like them, right? Because they need that reinforcement. Smiling too much, laughing too much in interactions with women, doing anything they can to get constant reinforcement because they've got that anxious attachment style with women. And very frequently, these are the men who struggle to approach women because, again, rejection is a really hard thing to deal with, especially if you have an anxious. It's hard to deal with for anyone. But if you've got an anxious attachment style, that's going to be twice as hard again. On the flip side, you have your avoidant attachment styles, and this is often where you're, I don't want to say you're players. You know how we all know a guy who sleeps with lots of women, but he's emotionally detached, can't get into a healthy relationship to save his life, might still have like drinking problems and drug problems. He's not necessarily a happy human being, but he still shags a whole bunch of women. That's your avoidant attachment style. So what these guys do is these are the men who women often complain about. So they end up with these guys who are in avoidant attachment styles, and these guys ignore them a lot, right? They treat them like rubbish. They don't get too emotionally attached. They keep distance from women for the same reason, because they are still a form of insecure attachment. So they don't trust that women are going to be there for them. They don't trust that women really love them. They've still got self-esteem issues, but they manage it, they handle it by being avoidant. They manage it by not trusting, by staying emotionally disconnected. It's a different way of dealing with the same core issue that these men have. Now, a lot of guys say, well, clearly, if I want to get laid and be happy in life, I should have an avoidant attachment style, because those guys seem to get laid by rock stars. It's better than that than to have an anxious attachment style. But actually, both of these forms of attachment styles are really deeply unhealthy, and they lead us to be deeply, deeply unhappy. But see, there's something interesting that happens in relationships, and that's that if you are an avoidant attachment style, you are always going to be attractive to, or you're always going to attract to yourself, women who have an anxious attachment style. So you're never going to get two avoidant attraction style people dating, almost never. It just doesn't happen, right? And so what you end up happening with those avoidant attachment style guys end up like with these really insecure women chasing them, right? And that's exactly, it's like catnip to anxious attachment style women, right? An avoidant man is like catnip to those women. So they end up with really clingy, needy, insecure women chasing them and trying to have sex with them. Guys who are an anxious attachment style, what they are attracted to, and you'll find this if you fall into anxious attachment style, whether it's extreme and preventing you from getting into relationships at all, or you've had relationships in the past, what you're going to find is that you're constantly dating women who are an avoidant attachment style themselves. So you're going to end up in relationships with women who want to get away and escape your neediness and escape your clinginess, because you are constantly going to attract that kind of woman. But let's take it a step further. What happens if two anxious attachment style people meet and they start to date? Here's the interesting thing. One of them almost always flips to becoming avoidant. And this is fascinating. And I've discovered this. I had this in my life. So my tendency when I was a younger man was to trend towards an anxious attachment style. And so I wasn't a secure attachment style young man. And I had at one point, my partner left me and I was in tatters and I was really unhappy. And I was still emotionally attached to my ex. And I started dating this girl who was super, super anxious attachment style. And she was so much so that it was the most crazy thing. I suddenly found myself behaving in an avoidant pattern, right? I was emotionally attached from her. She was super clingy. I just wanted to escape her. I was saying things to her and behaving in ways that used to upset me when my ex would do it to me. And suddenly I was doing it to this woman. And it was because she was by far the most anxiously attached, and I got pushed into the avoidance style. And it's really interesting that you can get, it's almost like a spectrum in a relationship. You can get pushed from one to the other as a way of coping, as a coping mechanism. And this coping mechanism is really why I think a lot of pickup artist advice, also red pill and MGTOW advice, can be very dangerous, because it is very attractive. MGTOW and red pill philosophies are very attractive to men who are anxious in their attachment styles, because they've been hurt by women. They don't trust women. Women are dangerous. The world is dangerous because there's women in it. That's how they feel. And they've often been proved correct, so to speak, because these women have hurt them, because they've dated women who are avoidant. And so they've been hurt over and over again by these avoidant women. And so what these philosophies often do, not always, but a lot of pickup artists and a lot of red pill stuff and a lot of MGTOW stuff in various different ways, because I know these philosophies aren't the same, but they're essentially teaching these men to adopt an avoidant, anxious attachment style, right? They're teaching them to be avoidant. So, have lots of, like, for example, the plate spinning idea of Rollo Tomassi, which is a red pill thing. Be sleeping with lots of different women, or have lots of different women around, so that you always know you've got women who want you. That's an avoidant strategy, right? That's not a healthy, secure attachment style strategy. It's an avoidance strategy, so you don't get too emotionally attached. So all eggs aren't all in one basket. So you don't accidentally become needy. Well, needy is bad, so let's protect yourself by being avoidant. And a lot of these strategies, most of them are around learning to become, or at least starting by pretending to be avoidant, and then eventually becoming an avoidant guy. Because what you're doing is, by pretending to be avoidant, you're going to start to attract women who have an anxious attachment style, and then you're going to meet lots of clingy, anxious, attached women. But hey, at least you'll be getting laid. None of this is emotionally healthy for guys. And what you need to be doing is paying attention to your attachment style and learning to see a therapist, see a specialist, start learning about attachment theory. It's a very well-researched area, but work on yourself, because you can learn to develop a much healthier, secure attachment style and be much better at explaining your needs and setting boundaries and doing all the stuff that a securely attached person does. Because only then can you start to have a really healthy relationship with women who are emotionally healthy. Because until you have a secure attachment style, women who have a secure attachment style won't get near you. That sounds really sad and really bad, but that's how it is. And nor should they want to go near you, because you are dangerous to them, right? And they're looking after their own needs. So that's an area that I honestly believe a lot of the men watching my channel, a lot of guys who struggle with women, often don't realize because no one tells them, they need to look at their attachment styles and work to becoming securely attached. And once you're there, once you've worked towards that end, you'll start to have far higher quality relationships with far higher quality women. Have you had any experience with attachment styles in your life? Have you done any reading on the topic? Let me know what your experience has been down in the comments below. As always, if you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe to my channel over here and click on some of the other videos to check out some of the others that are going on. I hear they're pretty awesome. Have a fantastic week. Stay safe during the coronavirus period. Take care.